Well, there you go. Happy darn Tuesday and CultureCast Day, everybody. Welcome, Dr. Marvell Parker. I'm super
Thank you.
excited to have you on
Thank
my
you.
CultureCast. And yeah, I don't know. I was sitting through the countdown. It felt like super serious until the music came on. And so thanks for hanging in, everybody. I think that's pretty funny. Anyway, welcome, Dr. Marvell Parker, a very brand new friend that I had the chance to meet last month. Actually, it's been about a month, right? We
Yes,
were
been a month.
together
Yes.
in Washington, D.C., which was a pretty amazing, historic gathering. And I won't give a lot away, but what I will say, and if you want to talk about it, Marvell, we can jump into it. But what I will say is Marvell and her husband, Reverend Wheeler Parker, had joined this amazing group of people who are descendants of iconic, celebrated Black civil rights leaders in the United States. And I say it's historic because it was the first time that the families got together, and some of them may have met for the first time as well during that gathering. So I'm so grateful that through that, I had the chance to actually meet you and meet Reverend Parker as well and get to know you. And so grateful that you are spending time with me on CultureCast.
Nice being here.
Well, Marvell, let's jump into it. Let's talk about, first of all, before we get into anything related to your husband, Reverend Wheeler Parker, let's talk about who is Marvell. You've had such an interesting background, and I know that now you are the executive director for multiple foundations, but let's get into what has been your journey. So, how you met your husband, the journey that you've been on from a career standpoint, and how that really has led you to where you are now.
Well, my journey has been exciting. Been a lot of changes, career changes. I began my career in working in accounting, accounts payable, accounts receivable, cost accounting. I went back to school and got a degree. And in going back to school, I was exposed to travel industry. So I went back to school again, took travel courses, and in 1984, I opened my own travel agency, which was Vels Travel Inc. And as president of Vels Travel, I got a chance
Wow.
to travel across the world as an agency owner. Got a lot of fam trips, familiarized myself with the world, and after a while, my husband said, "When you write one ticket, write two." So he started
Nice.
traveling with me, and we just had a lot of fun with the travel. In the course of that, I began my community activism in 1992, and as a result of that, we created a uh, faith-based, not-for-profit organization here in town in order to deal with drug activities and to
Yeah.
find and provide alternatives for our youth. And in doing that, I was able to attract the attention of the political leaders. I found out in community mobilization, and when you can get people to come together, the politicians come. They
Yeah.
said they said you can get more people at a paid dinner than we can get at a free dinner. So the mayor brought me on board. Newly elected mayor brought me on board as director of community development for the municipality, and I worked in that capacity as director of community development. I was able to see the municipality build a new fire station in 1998. We built a community, our nonprofit organization received CDBG funding, and we built a community center
Wow.
in 2001. And I ended my career as community development director with a senior housing development here in town. We have 60 units of senior housing. And then I retired. I was retired from January to September, and the mayor appointed me. He appointed me on the board of trustees after one of our trustees passed away. And from that time on, I've been elected to that position for 3 terms. So I'm in my third term as
Oh my
village
goodness.
trustee. I'm now the senior trustee, and I'm chairman of finance, public safety, and HR. So my plate is full.
You've got a lot going on,
2001,
Dr. Parker.
in 2001, we created the family, my husband and I, family members, Till family members, and close friends, we created the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley Institute. And as a result of that, they asked me to serve as a director, executive director. I said, I'm retired. They said, no, you got to do it. So I accepted the position as executive director of the Till Institute. We received a $700,000 grant from the Chad Zuckerberg Initiative, and we created a curriculum called the Emmett Till Story. We partnered
Yeah.
with Facing History and Ourselves out of Boston, and the curriculum was created. It was piloted in Mississippi, and it has been launched in Mississippi and in several schools in Chicago. That was our first initiative as a new organization. During those COVID months, 2021, 22, we partnered with several organizations, including the National Trust for Historic Preservation, National Park Service, Latham and Watkins Law Firm, and our pursuit to have the president through the Antiquities Act to create the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley National Park. And after diligently working on that, we were able to see that as a reality in July of 2023 when the president signed a proclamation that declared and created the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley National Park, non-contiguous national park, which is the first in the United States,
Oh,
where
wow.
there are sites in more than one state. There are one site in Chicago, which is Robert's Temple Church of God in Christ, which is where Emmett's funeral was held. And in Mississippi, it's the Sumner Courthouse, of course, where the infamous trial was held and his murderers were acquitted. And also Grayball Landing, which is where his mutilated body was recovered.
Mm.
So we are excited about that. We're now in the process of restoring Robert's Temple to its 1955 facade. We received a grant from the Mellon Foundation to begin that work. And the work is actually, we're actually going to put our hard hats on in the morning and start taking down the brick.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so you're restoring the facade of Robert's Temple Church. That's amazing. Let's unpack all of this, Dr. Marvell. There's so much going on with you. And here's what I love. So, first of all, I'm going to go all the way back um, to you studying accounting and then going back into travel, because I'm a big believer that, travel is education. And when you expose yourself to the world, it just opens up your thinking and opens up more curiosity and learning. But what was it in your, I think, childhood that led you to this interest in either pursuing accounting, but then, or was there something that earlier on in your life that you kind of said, you know what, no, travel's it, because you hit it big back then. Before, I know technology has changed the world
So,
of the travel industry, but back then, I mean, you were in it, right? Like full on, get in there, right? So tell me about that interest in accounting and travel. What was it that led you to that?
well, the accounting, I always like working with numbers.
Yeah.
Even in my high school yearbook, where they put under your picture what it is you want to be. And I said I wanted to be an accountant. And
Oh,
they said,
really?
well, the field is not really open to women. This was a long, 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 long time ago, 1964. And I said, well, things change, and things certainly did change. However, I got into travel really indirectly. My husband had a wanderlust for travel. When I
Yeah.
met him and married him, he had been to Germany in the army, and he always said, I want to take you to Germany. You got to see Germany. So for our 10th wedding anniversary, he said, we're going to go to Europe. I said, well, if we're going to go to Germany, I said, well, I'm not going to Europe without seeing Paris and London and Rome. So we ended up taking a 16-day tour, and that began our
Oh, my
travel
goodness.
abroad. In 1982, we decided that we would travel with our president of our missions department of our national church. The World Pentecostal Conference was going to be in Nairobi, Kenya. And he
Wow.
came home and said, we're going. So we traveled to Nairobi, Kenya. And of course, the trip was included Israel and Egypt. And the
Oh, my
travel agent
goodness.
who put together the trip for us traveled along with us and shared he was of Indian He was from the country of India, but
Yeah.
he told me if I ever wanted to change careers to let him know. And after about maybe 2 years, I was ready to change careers. I gave him a call. He came out and saw our commercial building and he said,
Yeah.
"You don't need to work for me. You need to open your own travel agency." And that's it just evolved. It just evolved. And that's what happened. And we began to travel. I began to travel exclusively as a travel agency owner because there are a
Yeah.
lot of opportunities when you own an agency or even work for one to travel to various locations. As an owner, sometimes the trips are free. As an employee, they're reduced rate, but I got a
Yeah.
chance to see the islands and just beautiful things so that I could better sell it. And being next door to the barbershop, my travel agency, with all of the traffic going in and out of his
Yeah.
barbershop, I had ready-made clientele because people were able to come in and sit down and chat, read my brochures, and share my travel experiences. So it was a real fun time.
Oh
Real
my
fun.
gosh. And I love this. You are like this badass boss lady. And the fact that you're like, I'm ready to go do this travel agency. And your friend said, you should open your own business. And I love that it was side by side with Reverend Wheeler's barbershop next door. I love that because I'm sure you all probably talked about whatever last adventure you've been on, and the clientele would come in and have those conversations. So it was kind of an easy connection to. And when you're ready to travel, you've
Yes.
got Dr. Marvell here to help you, which is amazing. I love that. So I want to hear about when you met Reverend Wheeler. And, did you know his family background and kind of meeting him? It seems like um, not only because of your smarts as a business owner and having run successful businesses. And I just want to set the context for people. I think you're talking about the city, and it is Chicago, um, and how you've been connected to the community and the government in Chicago. I'd love to know, like, when you first met him, did you have an inkling that, like, hey, your life would be um, taking additional meaning, right? Because not only did you marry him, but you guys are partners, not only in life and love, but really in creating this legacy. So tell me about that. Like, did you have a clue at all, other than, yeah, I'm going to marry this guy? Like,
Well,
what was happening back then?
I can tell you one thing. He was the
Yes.
creme de la creme with the crop. He was a catch. But his brother actually dated my best girlfriend, so I knew his
Oh,
brother
wow.
for several years. And because Wheeler was in the army, I guess when I first met his brother, and it was my best girlfriend that orchestrated me meeting him and him coming to visit me. And I just said he liked what he saw, and
Ah,
he kept coming back.
I
So
love it.
I
Now,
give her credit for that. Actually, I went by his mom's house with her one night, and he was there, and he saw me, and he said he looked at me, and he said that little girl needs to be at home with her mother. But he
what?
remembered the little girl, and the next time I saw him, he was on my front porch.
Oh, really? What
Yeah.
was that all about? That little girl needs to be at home with her mother. Come on.
It's
So
all in his. He tells the story in his book. So if you read his book,
yeah,
you get the whole story of how we met and how I caught his eye.
I love it. Please tell people who are watching right now, what book is it that they should read to learn more, but also to hear about your story?
Well, Wheeler's story, of course, is a. It's we talk about the story of Emmett Till, and it's a very unpleasant story, is what my husband
Yeah,
says. It's not a pleasant story, but it's a story that needs to be told. Wheeler was 16 years old in 1955 when
yeah,
he and Emmett journeyed together to Mississippi. They live next door to each other. Wheeler moved to Argo Summit. We live in the suburb of
yeah.
Chicago. We're in
Okay.
we're in Cook County, but we're in the suburb. Um, they moved. He moved next door to Emmett, and they became like brothers, best friends. Emmett had no siblings, so he attached himself to Wheeler, and his mom would take
Mm,
Wheeler along with Emmett whenever they went fishing or places that they went. Wheeler's grandfather came from Mississippi in 55 for a funeral, and his mom decided that she was going to send, Wheeler back home with him for a little vacation. And when Emmett found out that Wheeler was going to Mississippi, from what the way the story goes, he would not allow Wheeler to leave him
Oh,
go to Mississippi without going with him. And even though his mom and the family members thought it not good for him to go to Mississippi, not understanding the ways of Mississippi, because of his persistence. And kids, we know how to beg when we want something.
yeah.
His persistence, she finally decided to let him go. She gave him a brief class in cultural socialization, but it was
Mhm.
not enough for him to stay alive.
Ugh,
They were there for 3 days, and they went to the store there in Money, Mississippi. And the story is told by many people who weren't there of what happened at the store. Nothing happened inside the store, which
yeah.
Carolyn Bryant says that he sexually assaulted her. That didn't happen, but he did whistle. He was a little managed 14-year-old boy trying to impress the other young boys at the store. And when she came outside, he did do the wolf whistle. And for that,
Mhm.
he lost his life. But
Oh my
Wheeler
goodness.
tells the story in his memoir. The book is entitled A Few Days Full of Trouble, published by Random House. It was released January 10th, 2023, in hardback, and January 2024. It's now out in paperback. And you can
Okay,
get it on Amazon. You can get it Target, Barnes and Noble. And it was an Amazon bestseller in the month, I think, of January or February.
amazing. Wow, thank you for sharing that detail about Reverend Wheeler's experience. I think you know this, and I felt like my husband Michael and I had the chance to really bond with Reverend Wheeler while we were touring the Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture. And there is a section there that's all around in
Yes.
memory and honoring Emmett Till. And it's interesting because I know Reverend Wheeler was talking about the book that he had written. And when you go through that kind of corner in that section, there's all these videos, and it's kind of like this picture montage and people kind of talking over and telling the story. And of course, there's a picture of the store that you referenced, there's the picture of the house where they were staying. And I
Mm-hmm.
know I shared this with you afterwards. Um, I hear you. It is not pleasant at all. It's a very unpleasant, horrifying story, if people aren't familiar with it, and also had made history. And he was sharing with such calmness and and also with facts, just kind of talking about, hey, this is what happened. And he talked about his cousin and how his cousin was quite joyful and, to your point, like very persistent and also very friendly. And I think in the class that his mom gave him, before they left the Chicago area and went to Mississippi, she just kind of said, hey, look, things are super different in Mississippi. You can't, um, it's not the same culture or same like social norms that you would expect here at home. And to your point, I heard the same similar story from Reverend Parker about the store, and he said he was just a really happy, friendly guy, but didn't realize the impact at that time in that
Seriously.
social culture. Yeah, what that impact would be. And so, and in walking through that exhibit, he also then said, and there's the house. And I mean, I got chills when he was talking about it. He said, in that room, like that corner of the house on the right side, he goes, that's where I was sleeping. And then,
Mhm.
my Emmett was sitting on just across the hall or sleeping
Yeah.
in that side. And so to hear that with facts and to talk through it in a very calm manner where I'm like, wow, I mean, to hear this firsthand. And he also said, and it took like 30 years to actually get all the facts straight
Yeah.
from people like, of course, Wheeler, Reverend Wheeler was there. And, I'm grateful that finally you've got to set the story straight. Right.
Yes.
So,
Yes. One of the
yeah.
things I say when I travel with him and I have to introduce him, We talk about the exhibit that was created by the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. We partnered with them in 2021, and they created a traveling exhibit that tells the story of Emmett Till. It's
Okay.
entitled Let the World See. And we traveled last year to 7 different cities. The exhibit is now continuing to travel. It's in Kansas City now at Kansas City University. And we will be going there to participate with the students at Kansas City University the end of April. But one of the things I say in the speech that I present is that Emmett had no idea. He didn't
Hmm.
realize that the trip to Mississippi was going to take him behind an invisible iron curtain. Now
Hmm.
he traveled to another America, an America where the laws were different, the people were different, and you had to act different in order to stay alive. And he had no idea, even though his mother attempted to
Yeah.
prepare him for Mississippi and for the journey, that the cultural socialization class that she gave him was not enough. It was insufficient. And as a result of that, he lost his life. And my husband often says that, yes, he did whistle, and he whistled at a white woman, which is a violation of the
Mm,
Southern mores. But he always says, but is that enough for you to lose your life? Is that enough to kill a person for a 14-year-old boy who was being managed and actually paying her a compliment? It's
yeah,
something.
it is something. I think my have we come a long way and then not, if I think about society today. Um, and we can dig into that. But I also want to talk about the title of this traveling exhibit that you did with the Children's Museum and now is in Kansas City. Let the world see. I think that's also very profound, right? I think about walking through the exhibit in the Smithsonian, and actually the original casket for Emmett
Hmm.
Till is in there. And
Yes.
I don't know if you want to comment on, what Let the World See really represents, because there's this huge mural of, and Reverend Parker was saying, I was sitting on this side, of the church and on this side of the casket, and you can see like everybody in there. And so, anyway, can you comment on that just so people can understand?
Well, the expression "let the world see" is taken directly from his mother after she viewed his mutilated body
Hmm.
and refused to allow the undertaker to do anything to correct or to make him look human. Most people in caskets, if you don't look good, they have a closed casket funeral, and they
Sure.
put a nice picture of you up there so people can remember you when you did look well. But she wouldn't allow the undertaker to do anything to his body, and she wanted the casket open,
Hmm.
which had to be heart wrenching to her to have to continue to view his mutilated body. But she wanted the world to see what she had seen,
Hmm.
because there would have been no way for her to really express it and translate to the world what had happened and what he looked like without them seeing it for themselves. And I know, ABC created a mini series entitled Let the World See. It was produced
Yes.
by Fatima Curry. And that was a true story. She followed the family for about 3 years to make sure that the story was told correctly. And that documentary that was created, Let the World See, tells the essence of what Mamie wanted the world to know is they saw the ugly face of hatred and racism in America.
Yeah.
And even though the murder of Emmett Till, there's a story within a story, and there's a story of the need for social justice. She pulled the cover off of America
Yeah.
and its hypocrisy. Um, America was, condemning things that were being done in Europe and turning their backs on how blacks were being treated in America. There's a story of racial reconciliation or the need for racial reconciliation. And the family has attempted to change the narrative of the murder of Emmett Till from hatred and lynching to a narrative that challenges America to change.
Yes.
What we promote is racial reconciliation, forgiveness, and love, which is the same thing that his mother, Mamie, projected. And she asked us to continue her work in promoting the legacy of Emmett Till.
Yeah.
Yeah, my phone
Wow.
stopped.
No worries. No worries on your phone. I think that's powerful to really change the narrative and actually do it from coming from a place of peace and love is what I'm hearing you say, but
Yeah,
also really trying to your point, pull the covers off and help people just see a different side of it, because it's been told a certain way. And, if we talk about society today, and which is why I said, we've come a long way and then we haven't. If you think about, and this is my experience, and of course, just my opinion, um, I feel like I've committed a career to looking for equity and humanity inside of large companies,
hmm,
right? And how we treat people. And at minimum, everyone, it's like the Bill of Human Rights, that everyone has the right to be treated with dignity and respect.
the respect.
And
Yeah,
and and how there are a lot of people will jump on that bandwagon today. It's one thing to say it, but it's another just to really behave that way. And to me, when I think
yes,
about social equity, it is not only inside the workplace. So, of course, I've worked in a lot of organizations where there's a very diverse front line and then not so much a diverse kind of senior executive team. How do you close that gap? But more importantly, how do you create that awareness and understanding that the experiences are vastly different, you know? And so, anyway, I can get philosophical on it, but hearing you talk about um, if one were to watch the documentary or read the book or even see for themselves, their own research in researching Emmett Till, that it causes a lot of agita, right? For people to kind of understand it, but to actually carry forward this message of, look, this racial reconciliation, racial equity that should be happening, justice in society, but coming from a place of peace and love. Again, I'm not surprised based on, getting to know you, but also spending the time with your husband, who is always coming from a place of peace and
yes,
also from a place of, I don't know if this is the right word, but I'll say joy, and I get it. Like, I mean, I don't get it. I've never walked in his shoes, but
mhm.
to actually live in that way, um, to inspire and enable change, I think is really powerful.
It is. It is. And the story of Emmett Till, as it relates to us telling it and promoting it so that the world will know what happened to him, the pursuit of truth, telling the truth about what happened. Because for many years, my husband grieved because
Hmm.
society said, and the story that was told and painted, that he got what he deserved. And that was also painful for him. So some of his joy now is coming from the fact that the truth is being told,
Yeah.
that he's not being painted as a villain or as someone who sexually assaulted an adult woman, because the way she described him as being a man. You know, he was 14,
Yeah,
just
he was
made
14.
14, just made 14. She described him as being a man. But the pursuit of truth, which is what he's always wanted, just tell the truth. And then some people, it grieves him when some people say, it is alleged that he whistled. And my husband
Yeah.
says, no, no, it's not alleged. I'm an eyewitness. He did whistle, but that still was not enough for him to be brutally murdered
Yeah.
for. But yes, the truth is, yes, he did. He did whistle. He did violate a social mores, and for that, he was punished, which Wheeler's grandfather offered to, to beat him or to jack him up. He just, didn't think it deserved them taking him away and brutally murdering him the way that they did. But um, in our quest of telling the story, we want to promote social justice, and our commitment to community activism is to promote telling the truth. And we really want to challenge the consciousness of young people to pursue change. and to fight against injustice. If young people come away from viewing the exhibit at the African American Cultural Heritage Museum in
Yeah.
D.C., if they come away from viewing the exhibit, the traveling exhibit that tells the story, the women of the movement produced the Let the World See, if they come away with the consciousness of being change makers, so that they in their own lifetime can see that justice will, roll down like a mighty stream, uh, we feel that our work is going to be worthwhile, that we'll be able to, close our eyes and see Mamie in peace, that we did continue
Yeah.
your work. We were successful in making sure that the story of Emmett, she never promoted herself, but of course she was a heroine also. uh,
Yes.
she is a historic icon because of her pursuit of justice and her forgiveness and her dedication and commitment to other people's children, that she will see, and will let her know that the story of Emmett Till and the story of Mamie Till Mobley is going to be preserved in perpetuity, and
I
it's going to
love
be
that. Yeah.
told truthfully. Yes.
Well, what I love about that too, and I think we talked about this the last time you and I connected, is that the focus on telling the story and targeting younger people so that they can become inspired and enabled to become change makers in the world. I mean, that's huge. And to start that young and inspire that understanding, information, confidence that they can actually make a difference in the world and help tell the truth, help tell that perspective, I think is really important. Um, that's one thing. And I'll dive into that just one more level. You've got a lot of people who watch this culture cast, and we always talk about how I invite leaders in the community and leaders in business to come onto this culture cast to talk about how do they cultivate environments, society, culture, communities where people can thrive. you know, if you were to give a piece of advice to anybody, like with all the work that you've done, what would that be? Like just how people could move forward in their lives. What one piece of advice can you give people who are listening or watching to actually open up their minds?
Well, I think that we all have a calling on our life. I think that we all have a calling on our life. And my husband always talks about, staying in your lane. If we would
Yeah.
just do our duty, and I think everybody, if they really seek to know the truth and the calling on their life, certainly they will find it. And if we all seek to do our duty and to fulfill the call that God has on our life,
Hmm.
I think we will all be able to see His face in peace. If you are a Christian and you believe in the Bible and the creationist theory, Jesus
Yeah.
told us to. He told us to go into my vineyard and work. He said, "And whatsoever is right, I will pay." Well, He has commissioned all of us, and we
Yeah.
all have a call on our life. And if we go into the vineyard, do the work that He has commissioned us to do, the pay is great. I mean, the pay is great here on earth and eternal life in the world to come. You can't beat that.
I know. I love that. And actually, you have never told me this, and because I just asked you the question right now, but it's just so reminds me of lessons learned from my dad, and I mentioned to you too that Reverend Parker kind of gave me dad vibes hanging out with him. And I've been very open about this. Last year we had lost my dad. And where I'm at peace with that and feel complete about it is that, we'd all had the chance to really spend a lot of great time with him. And in his last days, literally, I think his last 24 hours, and I shared the story at his celebration of life. I said this to our family, and I wanted everyone to know that when he learned, his condition wasn't getting any better, my dad took the time to actually tell the story of how he dreamed of moving to the US and how he somehow find a way to get here and how he got his first job and bought his first car. He came here to the United States when he was 19 and then eventually met his wife, right? My mom. And then they decided to get married and have a family. And he told all of these life stories that we've all heard growing up. And at the very, and then a story about each of my brothers and I, and, and then after about 45, 50 minutes of saying all of this, and he said, look, if what the doctor is saying is that, his health is going to quickly deteriorate,
Mhm.
without getting into a lot of detail, he wanted us to know, he goes, I want you to know that I am okay because I have lived my life's calling.
Okay.
And to me, so for you to say that as a piece of advice, I agree. And you don't need to be Christian. I think it is karma as well. If people aren't, Christian, or they believe and things happen for a reason, I agree
Yes.
with you. And I agree with Reverend Parker that it's not, it's stay in your lane, but it's also like, if you're going to live your life, get really clear about like who you are and what you stand for, right? And what has called you to
Yes.
really make a difference in this world. I love that. And you're just reminding me again, I'm getting like all these spiritual feelings just talking about it out loud with you, that like to say that as your advice. Yeah, it just really reminds me of, look, why I feel so at peace with my dad. He's like, I've lived my life's calling. And if people haven't figured that out yet, do it now, right? Like figure that out now before it's too late.
Many times we pursue
Yeah.
success, we pursue, you know, material things, but if you fulfill the calling that God has on your life, those things are going to come. We don't have to pursue them. What we should be pursuing is the work that He has set out for us to do. I think I think if we give it any thought, we
Yeah.
know. But
That's
sometimes
right.
we look at it and it's not glamorous enough. The pay is not great enough, or it's just not what I want to do. And I had other plans for my life, and I just finally had to surrender to, well, what is it that you want me to do? I mean, the greatest calling I thought would be, to be a housewife mother. That was my
Yeah.
goal. I wanted children, and I grieved over not having children. And when I stopped grieving over not having children and said, well, Lord, what do you want me to do since
Yeah.
you're not going to give me a baby? What is it? And then the world just opened up. It's like a cloud lifted, and there was the path. And so I began to pursue the path that He had for my life. And it has been fulfilling. He's given me people to love and people to love me. My nieces and nephews, my sister shared her 5 children with me.
Oh my
And on Mother's
goodness.
Day, I call her and say, thank you for being the mother of my children.
Oh,
Because I feel that they are as close to me as if I'd had my own. And they love what they call me is T-Vel. They don't call me Auntie, and they don't call me Marvell. They call
oh,
me T-Vel. And so I experienced parenting with them. I bought cars and plane tickets and paid college tuition, just like they're my kids.
amazing.
So
Well,
I get that. Yeah.
I'm loving this theme. Also, your sister, also, it is Women's History Month, by the way. And so the
Yeah.
fact that we're talking about you being T-Val to your children, right? And really your sister's children, but to kind of share in that parenthood and motherhood responsibility. And then I'm going to bring it back to Mamie Till Mobley, right? And the fact that she herself is a civil rights leader,
Yes, she is.
amazing. And to be able to talk about what she stood for, we're coming fresh off of what's been deemed as, of course, Black History Month, but it really should be history year round, quite frankly. But to actually acknowledge her as this amazing civil rights leader, and just again, I'm just going to say this, no, you know, hopefully no disrespect, but like she's a badass, also a boss lady. And the fact that she was able to inspire that kind of um, movement from people and to be brave herself,
Yes.
when that phrase "let the world see" is
Yes.
pretty amazing.
Well, this national monument, which bears her name, is a symbolic shrine to her life and to
Hmm.
her memory and the legacy that she left us with. Although her request to us was to preserve the legacy of Emmett, but her legacy is also being preserved. Mamie exemplified through her acts of courage. She became a civil rights icon. She had the
Hmm.
courage to have an open casket funeral, to let the world see the mutilated body of her son. That took courage, because I'm sure, people around her said she's crazy to let people see this. Why would she do this? But her courage, she had a message. She wanted the message. She had a message
Yes.
that she wanted the world to get from seeing what happened to her son. She had courage to travel to Mississippi to face his murderers. I mean, that took courage. That's
Yeah.
every day that she went in the courtroom. It is said that she feared for her life. Uh, for many years, I wouldn't even go to Mississippi because I feared for my life, and nobody knew me. It was just that you weren't safe. If your face was black, you weren't safe in Mississippi. She had the courage to take the stand at the trial, and we never knew this until we saw a reenactment of
Hmm.
the trial in West Fairmont, West Virginia. We were invited there to Fairmont High School, and those were white students who did a reenactment of the trial. And we saw that when Mamie was on the stand, some of the questions they asked her were so insulting. They asked her if she had life insurance on Emmett. They insinuated that, of course, that the body that was recovered was not Emmett, and that she was perpetrating that he had been killed so she could collect the $300 life insurance policy that she had on him. She had strength after realizing that his murderers were going to go free. She picked up the pieces of her life. She went back to school and she began to parent other people's children. She could have been bitter because of
Yeah.
not having her own or her son being taken from her, but she loved other folks' children. And that shows that she was certainly a great lady. She had the tenacity to pick up the torch and travel throughout the country advocating that Emmett's death not be in vain. That was
Yeah.
her goal. She challenged America to change. She wore the mantle of forgiveness, not hate. She passed that torch on to us with the challenge: don't let his death be in vain. And that's what we're doing, trying to fulfill the commission that she gave to us. Don't let his death be in vain.
Yeah. Powerful. And again, what a hero, a shero that we
Yes.
can also recognize and honor during Women's History Month. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
this is so insane and amazing at the same time. Um, so at the beginning of this, we were talking about the projects that you're working on, and I know this Robert's Temple Church, you're beginning the restoration. I can't wait to see pictures of you all with your hard hats. As you start breaking down the new brick and rebuilding it, what other projects are on the horizon for you and for Reverend Parker, to continue to create your legacy, and the legacy of Mamie Till Mobley and of Emmett Till?
Well, the Emmett Till Institute, we have several initiatives that are in place and ready to launch. One of the questions uh, that had been presented to me was, what do I read and what am I doing? And
Yes.
the answer is reading grant and writing grant proposals and
Oh
doing
my
research
gosh.
for funding. That's what we're doing, looking for funding to pursue the initiatives that we have developed for the Institute, Voices of Strength and Coalition for Black Mothers. Of course, we're going to be targeting Black mothers, navigating systemic racism, and uh, standing on being powerful and recovering from the loss of their children, being a support, offering a support system for those women. We're going to be offering community building workshops, healing cohorts, strengthening mothers and sons. That's one of our initiatives. We have an empowering Black prosperity, so we're going to be talking about leadership development and breaking the silence. We have a speaker series that
Oh,
we're going to be
wow.
talking about understanding racial trauma, cultivating resilience, and we've got about 14 sessions in that curriculum for understanding racial trauma and breaking the silence. One of our speakers is going to be Dr. Justin Hopkins, the power of place and racial trauma healing.
Hmm.
He'll be talking about. So we have a church that has offered us their sanctuary and their facility so that we can start initiating these programs before the Roberts Temple restoration is
Okay.
completed. We anticipate that will be done at the end of 2026. If we get the money to continue the work that we're doing, we have partial funding now for the facade restoration, but and for architect to design the interior restoration. We will be in our second community engagement session on Saturday,
Okay.
working with the architect to assist them in developing concept and plans for the interior restoration. And what we did was we brought together people who shared the community of memory of what Robert's Temple was during that era to help them get a sense of how to recreate how it was
Yes.
in 1955. So that's been exciting.
Oh my goodness. How exciting. So, how can people reach you or get access to this information, not only about the Roberts Temple Restoration Project, but also for the upcoming education seminars, racial trauma programs, like everything that you're doing? How can people get involved? How can they learn about it? How can they reach you?
Well, we have a website, thetillinstitute.org, and
Okay.
all of this information is made available on our website. We're in the process of making it a better website and getting it developed to a different level, to another level. But right now, you can access and you can make donations through our
Oh,
website,
perfect.
tillinstitute.org.
I
Yes.
love it. And then I know you already answered the fun fact, although I think you're making a trend, reading and writing grants, a trend, a cultural trend. What other fun things are you up to? Like, what are you loving doing these days when you are taking a breath, when you do have some downtime?
Well, when I do have some downtime, didn't take a vacation at all last year, but I have a 4 week timeshare in Marco Island, Florida, which I love, and
Amazing.
I can go there. I can only afford a timeshare. I can only afford 4 weeks, but I'd love to have a home there where I could go whenever I want. But with a timeshare, you're locked in. And my
Yeah,
time, I have 3 weeks in August and 1 week in October. That's my fun time. And those TVL kids, they go with me. So we
I
have
love
lots of
that.
fun on the beach and boat riding. We have a great time. I never go alone.
Oh my gosh, of course not. That's amazing. Well, I have learned so much. Just a couple of things from this conversation. Learned a different and new perspective of not only the story and the history of Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mosley, and about your husband, but then what a phenomenal role model you are in everything that you've accomplished in your life, and you say it with such grace,
Oh,
and
thank you.
humility. So thank you so much for spending the time with me and for sharing the information with everyone else here on CultureCast. And what we'll do is we'll post up the information on thetillinstitute.org so that people can know how to get a hold of you if they're interested in participating. We'll also share in the notes Reverend Wheeler's book in case people want to pick that up and read it, and
Yeah.
or search for the documentary Let the World See. There's so much great information that you have
Yeah.
shared with everybody. And Dr. Parker, I heart you and appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Well, hopefully we'll catch up someday to hear about all the amazing progress. But for now, everyone, thank you for joining us at CultureCast. And also join me in a big hug to Dr. Marvell Parker, as well as please send our regards to Reverend Wheeler Parker. And we just appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.